Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-filled gripe video for The Bronze Horseman by Paulina Simons. As I said, this video will have spoilers in it, so if you have not read this book, then go ahead and check out my spoiler-free review, which will be linked on the screen. So this book was painful for me to read. This took about 3.5 weeks, almost a month to read for me, and I do not take that long to read any book, even if it's long, if I'm engaged with it. And this book I dreaded picking up a lot of times. I kept waiting for it to get better. I had heard so many good things about this book, and I was waiting, I wanted to give it a full shot, and then at one point I'd gotten so far into it that I knew I couldn't just DNF it. I needed to review it, and I needed to talk about it with other people and have the full story in front of me to be able to point to things and stuff. So this is going to probably be a long video. I took a lot of notes as to what I want to talk about because I am so frustrated by this story. I have not been this mad about a book since I read Beautiful Disaster. And if you guys know, it's my most hated book of all time. So the first thing I want to touch on, which I touched on my review, is the characters. The characters made this book so unlikable for me. I thought Tatiana as a character a lot of times was incredibly unlikable. She grew from the beginning. At the beginning, I hated how naive she was. She was excited for a war, like, really. And I get that is a very typical kind of like teenage child response because she's very childlike, but that's another thing I have a problem with her. I just did not enjoy that at all. And even the meet cute that we have of her and Alex meeting for the first time that first day felt creepy to me. He followed her home on a, or followed her wherever she was going on a bus. Okay? I understand it's a different time and that things are more like romantic and like people trusted other people and stuff, but like creepy, okay? Like that would really creep me out. And she was just like, oh, this boy I like is following me. And I was like, he could be killing you. Like he could follow you to kill you in like a forest or something. Like, what are you doing? So that's when I first started to kind of dislike her. And just the fact that she was not taking anything seriously, whatever. And then as she grew, she started to take care of her family more. And while that's a very admirable trait that she was starting to take on, her family is horrible, and everyone that she takes care of is horrible, and she is so selfless, but I don't like selflessness in the face of not having any agency and not having any kind of survival instinct at all in a period when you needed that. So that made her really unlikable too, because while I understand that it's very valiant that she is very selfless like that, it was like, you aren't thinking and you aren't taking care of yourself whatsoever. Your family is horrible. And her family, I just hated how abusive her family was to her from the beginning, how they let her hear things like they didn't even really want her. They didn't even want her from the beginning, it sounds like. They were always talking about her twin, and I wish there was more like twin stuff going on between her and her brother. You didn't get anything with her brother before he leaves, so you don't get that connection with them at all. And then all of her family are pretty much horrible to her besides her grandpa. So I don't really have all this love that she has for her family. Like, I understand people that are abused still love their families in a certain different kind of way, but it didn't make any sense because you never see redeemable qualities from her family. They're always putting her down. They're hitting her. They're emotionally abusive, manipulative to her. They're always calling her names. They're saying, you know, like, when she can't get food because of the war, and they're calling her, like, basically a piece of shit. Like, it's just, I can only read so much, and that was really awful for me. And especially with the whole plot line that her and Alexander are kept apart because of Dasha, because her sister. You don't have any kind of relationship building with her sister. There's very few elements, and even really only at the end did I really get to see that relationship between her and her sister a little bit, as her sister's dying. With, like, why does she want to protect her sister so much? Why does she love her sister so much? Her sister doesn't do anything for her. She's a huge bitch to her half the time. She hates her as much as her family does. She is lazy. She doesn't do anything. She doesn't help her at all. Like, what? So them staying apart because of her love for her sister is totally unbelievable for me. So the whole plot line of the half of the book, basically, of them keeping it in their relationship and their like feelings for each other from her sister to not break her sister's heart. So you think lying to your sister is going to be better? Like, even till the very end, they wouldn't tell her the truth. Like, she is dying. Just tell her the truth. Like, oh my God. And both of them wouldn't do it. And then it caused even more friction with them because in his last words to Dasha, he said that, you know, like, I never loved Tatiana, da da da, and then Tatiana believes him, and like, it's just a mess. It's a whole miscommunication mess, and it keeps them apart for so long. And honestly, like, I understand that they're like, oh, we had to keep Dmitri away from Tatiana because he wants to take everything that's Alexander's. It's just a weak story. It's incredibly weak. Like, come on. I know he wanted to come around by her and whatever, but like, you're gonna agree to marry your sister so that you can see her still, and so you don't break your sister's heart? Please. Please. And just also with Dasha being so unlikable, she's selfish, she's mean, she's abusive, and then she's just stupid because you can obviously see, everyone else around them can see that they are like connected and that they, you know, like each other and everything, and she can't see it. Like, stop. It's so frustrating. And just, again, the whole thing of, we're gonna lie to you because we love you so much, like, that's not love, and that's ridiculous, and it's just a really weak plot point to me. And that plot point continued even when Dimitri wasn't around. So Dimitri was gone, and we still have him and her lying to Dasha about it and, like, you know, tearing each other apart because we're trying to keep this big secret. And it's just like, you guys would have just been honest from the beginning. And I know he wanted to be and whatever, but it's still like, okay, he wanted to be honest, but then he's still, like, implied sleeping with Dasha and still, like, gonna marry Dasha and, like, being affectionate. Like, if you really love Tatiana so much, you wouldn't be able to do that. So stop. And we continually had this plot line going through. Eventually they have a fight where Alex is like, I'm mad at you for not fighting for me. Are you serious? You're marrying her sister. What is she supposed to do? You see her family's abusive to her. You see her family will probably, like, beat the shit out of her if they mess up, you know, if she messes up Dasha or something. So, like, what do you expect her to do? You see that she's trapped. She tried to do everything she could. Her family doesn't listen to her. And you're marrying her sister. And you agreed to that. You could have been like, when Dasha was like, we should get married, you could have been like, no, you know, like, we shouldn't get married. Like, really, dude? Really? Then we just have a lot of creepy things with Alexander, even before they had left Leningrad, where he gets mad that she won't listen to him. Who are you again? Like, she's known you for like 2 months? Like, are you serious? You're mad that she won't listen to you? Well, one, she can't listen to you. Like, he's always mad when she, like, won't, you know, she wouldn't get out of Leningrad, she wouldn't tell her family to go get Pasha, she wouldn't do this, wouldn't do that. She has no agency. The girl has absolutely no agency. She can't do anything unless someone tells her to do it, and she's pushed around by everybody, including him. You really, and you're mad she doesn't listen to you. Also, there's a scene where he wipes off some lipstick that she's wearing after she breaks her leg and she's wearing lipstick. He gets kind of mad at her and, like, wipes it off her face. Bro, that was, like, one of the first elements where I was like, okay, I didn't like this guy for, like, shady reasons I had my own feelings about, and now I'm like, emotionally abusive, emotionally manipulative. What? Telling you what you can and cannot wear? That's like abuser 101 right there, okay? Also, while he's still seeing and / engaged to Dasha, he gets mad at Tatiana if she talks to other men at all. He gets mad if she talks to Dimitri, which is fine because Dimitri's creepy. But he gets mad if she talks to her friend from the roof, I think his name was Anton or something, who is not even any kind of romantic anything. He gets mad if anyone talks about boys liking her when she was younger. Like, she didn't even know you when she was like 7 at the time. Like, are you serious? Like, childhood crushes you're gonna be mad about? He gets mad about everybody. He gets mad about when he finally comes to that village where she is after Dasha dies and everything, about that guy that likes her. He gets mad. He gets mad about everybody that talks to her. Like, again, abuser 101. This insane amount of jealousy. You are literally sleeping with her sister and marrying her at one point, and you're gonna be mad at her for guys having crushes on her or for speaking to other men? Really? So then after the winter and after everyone has died, which I didn't even care about because I didn't like any of the characters, any of these selfish characters, like her family that would eat half the rations half the time or sell things they weren't supposed to or not listen or get mad at her for stuff that she can't control. All of them die, which I do not even care about. Then we have her getting to that village and it's the same thing all over again. Alexander finds her and she's taking care of a bunch of people who are selfish and pieces of crap and just abuse her and, like, walk all over her, basically. Like, maybe they don't abuse her, but they really do take advantage of her in this village at a high level, so it's just ridiculous. And then she went and told everybody that Alexander was Dasha's fiance and that he might come for her. Why would you say that? You have a chance to start over, like, completely fresh without any of that if he does come for you. Why would you say that? So we have this whole miscommunication of that happening for a while and of him, you know, thinking, like, she doesn't care and her thinking he doesn't care. All this miscommunication. Sick of it. That lasted about 100 pages of miscommunication with them until they finally break down and, like, you know, get married and whatever. But, like, it's just plot recycling over and over and over again in this book. Then we have the, like, 250 pages of just sexual activity all the time. And like I said in my review, I'm okay with sexual content. It's an adult romance. I get it's going to be in there, but it doesn't have to be in there for 200 pages. You'd have, like, a paragraph of them talking and then, like, a page of them having sex all the time. I get it. They're newlyweds. They love each other. They're having sex all the time. I don't need to read about it all the time. I get it. I don't need to read about it. Like, a few scenes of it is fine. Like, it, you know, if you're really into this romance and this angsty romance and they finally get together, that's great. That's very exciting for readers. I don't need 200 pages of it. I really don't. Then we have this really creepy line with consent as well, because we have him really enjoying her innocence and talking about her innocence a lot. I hate the trope of the extra virginal female protagonist and then the guy that's been like extra into all these women and he's slept with all these people and he has all this experience and da 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 da. Like, it just makes their relationship that much more creepy to me, because you already have this age difference and this experience difference and this power difference, and then you have that on top of it. So that's already icky. And then we have her saying no a lot of times as far as sexual activity, like telling him no, and he still is like yes and does it, and it's just like so awful. And I was horrified when that was happening. Like, she'd say no, but it's also like implied that she means yes. I hate that blurred line bullshit. Do not do that in stories and be like, oh, women need to be like, say no when they really mean yes. No, no, she says no, she means no, whether she really wants it or not. And, you know, like, even when it was like she wants to have sex with him but she can't because like people will hear, blah blah blah, and she says no because she's uncomfortable, don't have sex with her. What are you doing? I don't care if you're married or if you're together or whatever, that is still rape. She said no. What? Why is this in romance novels and romanticized? I'm so angry about this, and it happened multiple times, and I'm appalled by it every single time. There's also a lot of these lines about her saving herself for him, and he never did that for her. And it's all this, like, it's like, oh, look at this wonderful virginal protagonist. Isn't she so great? She saved herself for her love. He didn't save himself for you. Why is this totally this great thing? Like, what? Why? After they get married, she does talk about how she felt like maybe his possessiveness and jealousy would go down once they got married. And there's a line where he actually says, my possessiveness, jealousy, and defensiveness over you will just increase tenfold now that we're married. And it's just like, you're just admitting to being possessive and jealous, and then it's going to increase tenfold. It's supposed to be like swoon-worthy, like, oh, he loves me so much. Like, no, that's a bad sign. It's abusive. It's abusive. He's abusive. So then we have him obviously leaving and going back to Leningrad, and her going eventually with him and following because she's crazy and has no survival instinct and is so wrapped up in him, and they're so codependent. So when he finds out and he goes and he sees her and he's really mad, that is when the next step in the chain of events that made me just hate everything about this book happened, in that there was physical abuse between these two people. There's this whole scene where he's yelling at her and she's saying that you shouldn't have come here and da 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 da, and I don't want you to die. All of like actually being, you know, protective kind of in a reasonable way, but he's still yelling at her. It's nothing she can do now, and she loves him and she wants to be by him, whatever. But then she says, stop raising your voice. And he says, I'm about to raise more than my voice at you. So threatening physical violence. Again, abuser 101. Are you serious? Are you serious? And then he actually does escalate it to physical violence. He throws a backpack at her head. He punches the wall by her face multiple times, and he grabs her chin in his hand and causes her to be in pain. She actually says, stop it, you're hurting me. There's marks afterwards. And this is the guy that earlier on in the book, he was like, I don't ever say that I'm somebody that would hurt Tatiana, you know, like her family and stuff. He defends her from her abusive family. And now he's laying his hands on her because he has a good reason, because he's mad at her. There's never a good reason. There's never a good reason for you to lay hands on your significant other or anybody else. There's never a good reason. Stop. So then that gets resolved, and then we obviously have him getting like sick and her getting sick and her being pregnant, because of course the virginal protagonist has to get pregnant. And I mean, that was obviously going to happen. They were having sex all the time. But then we have her saving him again because she has such a codependent relationship and she has no agency of her own and she has no survival instinct. And doing like a blood transfusion arm to arm while she's pregnant with him so that he won't die. Like, I understand that you love him a lot, but like, holy shit, okay? Like, that, not healthy. Not healthy. She's like dying, you know, she's like fainting. Really. So, and then we have the whole issue with Dimitri and him just being an asshole, because I knew from the beginning that Dimitri was going to be that mustache twirling villain who's evil and it's just going to keep popping up and never going to go away, and he's so annoying. You know exactly what's going to happen. I knew at the beginning, as soon as we knew what happened with Dimitri and that Dimitri had this thing over him, he was going to cause issues at the end. So we have everyone lying to Tatiana to get her out of there, blah blah blah. And Alexander is getting arrested, and he's going to go with like their like KGB and stuff and like basically be like killed. Obviously, because that's obviously what was going to happen. We all knew it from the beginning. And she goes, she has to take Dimitri and the doctor. They get to the border. Dimitri gets found out. He almost tries to kill her and the doctor because he's an asshole. Like, obviously he's an asshole. That death, though, of Dimitri was so unsatisfying. Like, I wish that Alexander could have killed him with his bare hands like he would have in the ward. Like, I don't like Alexander as a character mostly because he is, like, violent like that, but, like, Dimitri is awful. So, it would be understandable in that case because he's so awful. So, I just felt like that was a really unsatisfying death. And then we keep getting to the end, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna show, like, Alexander somehow, right? She finally gets the clue that he's still alive. She's in America. She had the baby. End of story. Really? Really? I don't believe that I suffered through 800 pages of this story for that. An abusive relationship, a toxic relationship, a codependent relationship, an angsty for no reason relationship, a relationship based on miscommunication, and with a recycled plotline over and over and over again, predictability. The only lights in the darkness were the historical elements that I really enjoyed, but otherwise, I suffered through this book, and I hate it, and it's another example of a very toxic, awful relationship, which I hate seeing. And I went into this book thinking I was going to love it. That's the worst part, is I went in thinking I was going to love it. I had heard a little bit of mixed reviews, but I never really watched them. I always was like, this sounds like a wonderful, angsty romance, but this is not the kind of angst that I want, this contrived, manipulative angst, manipulating the reader and just keeping the characters apart to create angst. That's not good angst. Just keeping the characters separated. And I read the synopsis for the next 2 books, and it's just continuation of that. So the whole second book, basically, from the synopsis, looks like they're going to be apart for the whole second book. And then the third book, when they eventually do come back together, they have this emotional distance because they've been so distant. I will not read any more books about this contrived relationship, contrived angst, horrible abusiveness, really flat characters. I wish Tatiana would just, like, leave him, but she won't because she's so wrapped up in that she just, like, did give him a blood transfusion. It's ridiculous. And I don't even have any more words. I could probably go on and on about this because there's so many things I could pinpoint and just comb through, things I didn't like about this story, but I won't. I understand a lot of people liked it. I understand that it can be very addictive reading. I understand that there's a lot of tropes people do enjoy in here. I just think they're incredibly unhealthy. I do not like seeing this kind of relationship as a main focus. Sometimes these little borderline, this one's not borderline, this one's like full-blown abusive, but sometimes those borderline relationships I can take when they're not the main focus of a story. But when it's actually a love story and Alexander is shown as a romantic hero, I've got issues. I've got issues with the protagonist that has no agency for herself. These are things I hate, and I will never stop hating, but I'm going to stop this gripe because otherwise it'll go on forever. So comment down below, let me know what you thought of The Bronze Horseman. I know it's a lot of people's favorites. I know it's a very polarizing story. People either love it or hate it. There really is no in between with this book. So comment down below and let me know what you thought. So thank you all for watching. I'll see all you guys soon. Bye!